Flames Nation, Noah, it's Printzy, and we're back with another episode of Shot Down in Flames. And we're back with a positive episode this time. The last episode, if you listen to Shot Down in Flames, there was a lot of yelling, there was a lot of F-bombs, there was a lot of anger directed towards the Flames, and there was a lot of anger directed towards the Flames fan base. We don't have a whole lot of reason to be angry now after the news that dropped on Friday night, and you probably have already listened. We did drop an emergency podcast from Ryan Pike, and he dropped it on Friday night, like late Friday night. I put it out at like midnight, so lots of good breakdowns and that kind of stuff. But we're just going to continue to follow up here on the Calgary Flames trading Matthew Tkachuk to the Florida Panthers for Jonathan Huberdeau, MacKenzie Weegar, prospect, and a first round pick in 2025, could be 2026. Noah, where were you on Friday night when that news dropped, man?
I was at my cabin. I was sitting on the patio, and I was just browsing around Twitter, per use type of thing. And then I saw the Elliott bomb. The Elliott bomb saying that Matthew Tkachuk has been traded to the Florida Panthers. And I'm like, my first immediate reaction is, what's the return? What's the return?
Yeah,
as soon as I saw the return, I was like, is this a fake account or is this a verified account? Like, seriously, what's going on here?
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say too. I was at the bar on Friday night, having a couple of drinks, trying to forget the past 10 to 14 days that it's been just a rough time in Flames land. And yeah, I got the same thing. I saw it from Elliot, and then I saw it from Frank next, but it only said to Florida, right? So we anybody had no idea. And my initial thought when he said Florida, I didn't think of the Stars, man. I almost was like a little bit down because I was like, who is Florida going to give up? They've got Huberdeau on a great deal. They're not giving him up. I'm thinking, oh, great. Here comes their former first round pick, another first round pick and 2 first overalls in the future and a second. And, some kind of no name roster player. I'm thinking, oh, great. And then it comes through as Huberdeau Weegar, the first of the prospect. I'm like you. I had to double check Frank's account and make sure it wasn't one of those account where like Suravalli, like the people put L's instead of I's or something like that to kind of trick you and make sure and put like a little blue symbol like to try to trick you. But then it was legit, man, and some people started shrieking at the bar and like it was just unbelievable, man. I'm still to this day like it's still like hasn't quite even like sunk in.
It's not even going to sink in until they're wearing jerseys on opening night.
Yeah, I should say it's sunk in a little bit with them on their media availabilities today. Seeing them actually talk about it and talk about the city in Calgary, it's starting to sink in a little bit. Yeah, you're right. It's not going to sink in until you actually see them, whether they come to Calgary and actually do another media availability where they introduce them with the jerseys. And, we haven't had that in so long with everything being on shutdown and stuff where, back in the day, I remember when it was like Troy Brouwer and like Mason Raymond and stuff back in the day, we'd have them in the dome and present them with
Brian Elliott.
Yeah, Brian Elliott and stuff like that too. So I'm hoping maybe that's the case, but these guys are out east, so and let them enjoy their summer and yeah. So I can't say right now that it's a complete long like touchdown home run, whatever you want to call it, just based on their unrestricted or their free agent status. But man, what a haul. Like, is there better haul than that? Was there a better haul to get?
I don't know. This is for me, like, because listen, I've been a hockey fan since right around 2006-ish type area. Is this perhaps the biggest trade of the salary cap era? Because have we ever seen anything like this before where 2 100-point players are in the same trade?
I think somebody had put it out there that it was like way, way, way back in the day before even I was born. I think one of the original, I think how the Oilers maybe got Gretzky or something to do with Gretzky, like before he was an Oiler. So yeah. But the biggest thing about this, you're talking about, have we ever seen anything like this before? The reason why I'm going to say no, you haven't, because it's the first ever
trade and
sign, or sign it, however you want to put it, trading a player knowing that they're going to sign. And the Flames are the first one to knock that out. And you know what? Incredible. That's probably a good thing, because now teams are going to start doing that shit and we're the test ones. We're the test bunnies that figured it out and did it. Hopefully we don't have to deal with that bullshit ever again. But you're going to see more and more teams doing it now because it fetches you the best possible return. Knowing that that player is going to stay with your organization, you have to give up more to do that, right?
You do, yeah.
So
especially for a player of Matthew Tkachuk's caliber, who had 104 points this year with playing with Elias Lindholm and Johnny Gaudreau. But this is one of the bigger cons of acquiring a haul like this. Is now you've got two players in MacKenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau are up at the end of the year. And it's not a win until they extend long term. Well, at least one of them you hope extends long term.
No, and like listening to Tree Living talk over the weekend and today and stuff like that, they knew what they were doing when they made the deal. Like everyone's all freaking out and panicking a little bit, saying, well, these guys are just going to walk at the end of the year. They knew what they were doing. Tree Living knew what he was doing. He's well aware of that. Otherwise he wouldn't have made the deal. The guy saved his job overnight.
He did.
Like we're all yelling at him, calling for his head and saying like, we don't want him going forward. And now we're like, don't ever leave us, Tree. Like that was, he, in saying that though, a lot of stuff did come out. Not knowing before, thinking that, he did the club elected arbitration to try to try to extend the negotiation period. And it wasn't that at all. No, it was, Tree said it himself, his own words, to say we did that to extend the trade window, but we wanted to get it done as soon as possible.
Right? It's funny because last episode we were talking about that, and that was my big assumption as to why that timeline was extended, was because something had gone completely wrong in the negotiations to the point where, okay, we need to trade him now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it wasn't even the Flames. It would have been Matthew Tkachuk going to the Flames. Yesterday he said on SportsCenter in the States or whatever, he knew about it maybe a week and a half ago, that he wasn't going to come back to the Flames. Yeah, which is around the time that Johnny signed. So, Tree coming out and saying that it doesn't have anything to do with Johnny. Tkachuk saying it doesn't have anything to do. Well, maybe.
I think that's a big lie from Brad Treliving, in my opinion, because if people don't think that whatever Johnny did had nothing to do with Matthew Tkachuk deciding that he wanted out, a little naive to think that.
It'd be hard to see that, maybe the Flames actually did pull the trigger and sign Johnny, that he walked again. Like, I don't know. Hard to say, but at the end of the day, too, like, we can sit here and be mad at the guy that you want, but look what we got back for him, man. Like, it's wild to think that we also got a 115-point left winger, who's the same age as Johnny Gaudreau. I think he's probably played more games. Being a former
because he played in 13, and then Gaudreau came in 2 years later.
Yeah, so he's got a few more games. They probably have, maybe even Johnny might have more playoff experience, but definitely not meaningful playoff experience. Like, playoff experience getting swept by the Ducks and, Colorado and 5, that's not meaningful. But at the same time, like, that's maybe a knock on Huberdeau and Weegar. Like, they haven't really done much in the playoffs either, right?
Well, they played in Florida, right? And that's a team that has only won one playoff series since getting swept by Colorado in 96.
Yeah. So neither of them, you can't really take into account the playoff success or anything like that. But to essentially replace Johnny Gaudreau with the same player, but maybe doesn't have the same offensive skill set, maybe a little bit different though, in the fact that he's bigger.
He's a better two-way player.
Than Johnny. He's a penalty killer. He'll go in the corners and stuff like that. A lot of knock on Flames fans is Johnny didn't go in the corners or anything like that. And, there's puck battles that were definitely lost based on size, and you can't fault the guy for being 5'8" or whatever he is.
No, you can't.
But Huberdeau's a bigger, stronger individual. Definitely someone that you would consider a leader, and maybe we'll get into the Flames captaincy a little bit later here, but it's definitely a guy that'll step in and be part of your leadership group right away. So it's tough, man. Like, cause you heard the availabilities of these guys today, and both of them said that they want to, they want to sign. They're open to signing long-term in Calgary. Whether that's them just saying the right things, or maybe the fact that they're excited to be here. Who knows? I think it's maybe a combination of both, because we're talking off air before. You're right. You can't just come in there and when they're asked, are you interested in signing long-term? No, I don't think so. I just got traded here. Like, no, they're not going to say that, man. No. Like, they want to be liked by this fan base. They know that they're here for a year or less.
So, do you think the key word that Huberdeau said today in his availability is that you want teams to want you?
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, I think that we can get into that right now. But it came out that he wasn't particularly happy with how the trade went down. And
No.
it's mostly stupid Oiler fans that are putting this out there saying, well, yeah, he doesn't want to be in Calgary. He wants to be in Montreal.
The
That's
Florida
not.
Panthers, I'm going to explain this to
Yeah.
Oiler fans right now. The Florida Panthers never called him,
Yeah.
never reached out of a contract extension. And by the time he ever heard from the Florida Panthers, it was like, oh, you've been traded.
Yeah, I think he was expecting the phone call to be about contract negotiations, and it was a trade. And, you know, I don't know the full workings of it, whether he did have to waive to go to Calgary, but I think it was Calgary just was on his modified no trade list or whatever like that. So I don't know if he waived, but either way, there was something in his clause where he agreed to go to Calgary. So, you know, whether he's sitting there today and angry, which I think there's a clip from him on TSN Overdrive that we had posted where he said, I feel like I dedicated a lot to the organization. I feel like I deserved a little bit more respect than that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a chip on his shoulder from being dumped by Florida like that. So I think anybody that's looking at that and going, oh, he doesn't want to be in Calgary. No, that's not the case at all.
This is Huberdeau's Michael Jordan moment right here. I took it personally.
Yeah, I mean, you can take it personally, man. Yeah, I get it, man. He's coming from Florida where it's beautiful out and there's beaches and, you know, there's bars and there's women, and then he can rip around in his blue Ferrari. He ain't ripping around in that thing in Calgary. That's for damn sure. But at the end of the day, man, you got to look at this guy too. And what we had talked about before is the lack of playoff success. Now, granted, Calgary's not a team that you go to that, oh, damn, they've been hot in the playoffs. No, we haven't.
No.
We got waxed by those clowns up north. But he might have a better opportunity here to go on a run where he doesn't have to worry about, oh shit, we're just going to run into fucking Tampa Bay again and we're not going to be able to get by them, right? Like if you take, it has happened, take away Huberdeau and Weegar from the Florida Panthers. Yeah, you know what? They added Matthew Tkachuk, and we'll give credit where credit's due, but I don't believe the Florida Panthers are a better team by taking those two guys away, man. Not at all.
I think, and look, people can say all they want that Tkachuk might have some success with Barkov, and maybe probably he might, but at the same time, do I still think they're a better team without Jonathan Huberdeau and Alexander? No, MacKenzie. I keep saying Alexander Weegar. No, it's MacKenzie Weegar. But anyway, so I don't think they're a better team without those two, and without those team, not their team at all. No, it just doesn't.
Like Tkachuk's gonna bring a whole other element, and whether or not he becomes another 100-point scorer, like that's the thing with both players. It's not a guarantee that they're gonna hit 100 points again either.
Funny thing about Matthew, by the way, in his media availabilities, he was trying to win Flames fans' hearts one last time when he said, I hate Edmonton, but I hate Tampa more now. So.
Yeah, I think he was doing a little subtle shot. I mean, what's there to like about Edmonton, man? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's on a hill. It's like nothing's interesting about Edmonton.
Yeah, so there's nothing to like, and especially with the organization, there's nothing to like about them. So he's probably just adding some fuel to the fire and stuff like that. Like, I think that could be a different spot. Like, I don't know how when he comes in, I think it's like November, whenever he comes down back to Alberta. I don't know how you can sit there and just boo the shit out of the guy. Like, I don't know how you can do it, man. Because if you actually listen to Tree Living and you listen to him say, I put it in about a week and a half ago that I went to the organization. It was a very difficult conversation, and I didn't want to be here anymore, and I wanted to go explore. I felt like my time was up. I worked with Brad Tree Living, my agent, and the team to make sure that they got me the right destination, and I was able to help them get the right return. Like, how are you angry at the guy for doing that? It sucks, man. I loved him as a player. I love that we drafted him. I love that to this day, even on the Florida Panthers, he still lives rent free in the Oilers' heads right now. So I love that about the guy.
Let me ask you something. When Brad Tree Living said the other day in his media availability that he appreciated working with Tkachuk's agent, right? Do you think that was a bit of a shot at Louis Gross? Just knowing how.
Maybe a little bit. I might even more be a shot at Johnny because I actually don't fault the agent.
I asked because someone put that on Twitter the other day, and that's got me sort of thinking, like, I have to think there's something to that because of the fact of how long it took Johnny to tell the organization compared to Matthew, where he was just completely straightforward and honest with what he wanted to do.
I think it's a combination of maybe a little bit with the agent and a little bit more of Johnny, because hearing Johnny speak a little bit more, it was apparent that he wanted to go to Philadelphia, and then they didn't make this cap space or didn't make any moves or whatever. And then he thought he was going to New Jersey, and then for whatever reason, Columbus appeared, and then he told his agent, "Well, that's where I want to go, so make it happen." We're very late in free agency or whatever it was. These agents, man, they make money on these guys' contracts, man.
They do.
So the biggest contract that Johnny got offered was the Calgary Flames. You don't think his agent wanted that deal? Like, you think that he wanted him to leave 15, 16, 17 mil on the table? That guy gets commission, man.
That's no different with every other agent in the league, including Alan Walsh, who I refer to as the Scott Boris of hockey. So
don't rip on that guy too much, because he's gonna be the guy that hopefully keeps us Huberdeau. So
he's pissed at me still for that comment I made about Fro League 4 years ago, which is why I got blocked by him.
Yeah, okay. Good to know. So kind of, back to, I guess, what we were talking about is, you can be mad at Matthew Tkachuk, you can be upset at the situation. I think a lot more Flames fans would be upset with the fact that, we only got picks or prospects or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we got an elite top pairing forward. We got an elite top pairing defenseman. We got a great prospect in Cole Schwindt, and we got a first round pick, which is a 2025 one, but it's lottery protected. And I listened to Tree break it down. So it's the top 10 one. So if it's a top 10 pick in 25, it automatically defers to 26. And then a bunch of people were online were like, well, why is it a 25 pick? Like, we got to wait that long. It's because the fucking Florida Panthers got rid of all of their fucking first round picks. So they dealt one last year, whatever. I can't remember the exact year for who it was. One was for Ben Sherratt, and then one was for Claude Giroux. So they got rid of both their picks, and now they got rid of their next pick for Matthew Tkachuk. So now they're not going to have a first round pick for like 3 years. And they got that for 20 games of Giroux, Sherratt, and then Matthew Tkachuk.
I'm just trying to look up their cap friendly for a second. So so you're right. They have traded all of their first round picks the next 3 years, including next year, 2024 and 25. And then 23. If you trade your first round pick in 2023, you are insane for doing that.
I know. So the Flames, that's kind of the nice thing that, it's a pick that's down the road for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also could be a trade chip. That's another thing. If you want to go all in, at sometimes you've got an additional first round pick to do that. I personally I like keeping the first round picks. We got to stock the cover, but at the end of the day, the prospect that we got listening to Tree Living again, Cole Schwindt, he said that he was a very big part of the deal. Probably not, life or death on the deal, but he was somebody that they really, really wanted as part of the deal. I believe he's a 2021, but he's, played a handful of games, no points or anything like that. But it's basically like, I'm not saying the exact same player, but you're adding to those players of Pelche and Zeri, and now you got Schwinn, guys that are kind of knocking on the door of opportunity, right? So it's kind of nice.
Now I'm going to ask about Pelche for a second here, and keep in mind, we still have maybe a few months until training camp to really continue to discuss it. But do you think Pelche makes the team opening night?
It depends on what they do, right?
Okay.
It depends on if they bring in a player, if they move out some pieces and bring in some more people, and we'll get into that soon here. If they don't make any moves or anything like that, I think that they're gonna give him they're not gonna put him in there. They're gonna give him the opportunity to fight for a spot, right? So if they bring in some guys, because if you look at the lines, and as soon as we get into defense, I want to talk about Weegar, because we haven't talked about Weegar yet.
Yeah,
but so the forward lines, you've got Huberdeau, Lindholm, probably just penciling it right now, Toffoli. Let's say it's Toffoli. That's your first line. Let's say your second line is Backlund, Mangiapane, and Coleman. So that's your top six.
That's the line they need to use for their second next year, because that line was unbelievable whenever
exactly. So keep that line together. So if you're looking, and we're talking about purely people listening to the podcast. We're talking about if they didn't make any moves. Yeah. So we were wondering, well, they could move Monahan. They very well could, but they haven't in our scenario. So the third line you're looking at: Monahan, Dubé, ? There's nobody there right now. So if Pelche was to make the team, that would be Pelche's spot. Your third line being Lucic, Rooney, and Lewis, with Ruzicka as your spare. So that's what you asked me. Does Pelche fit in? He could. He very well could. But you don't know if they're going to trade someone like a Monahan, maybe try to get rid of Lucic. They've got defensemen that they can move. that he very well could. I would love for him to make the team, and he'd wear number 19. That'd be kind of funny because he's
that would be really funny.
Yeah. So there's an opportunity there. And before we dive into the defenseman here, I was listening to Oilers Nation radio too, and they're all up in arms too. Like, what the fuck? How did they get this deal? And a bunch of them were saying they were like, take Huberdeau out of it and just Weegar, Schwint in a first. That's probably still a good trade. Like, Weegar is by far one of the most underrated defensemen in the NHL by far. A lot of Flames fans probably don't know who MacKenzie Weegar really is. You know of him, but you don't watch him to the degree that I've watched him before. And the reason why I watch him so much is because he's I do the stuff with Missing Curfew. He's been on Missing Curfew twice now. Been a very great guy. I've actually had a conversation with him myself before. So I followed him. I made sure that I paid attention and followed him because I'm looking for his highlights and stuff. Yeah, he's a great player. He's a great skater, transitional player. He can move the puck up the ice. Great. He's a great defender too. Brad was saying that he's good on his stick. He plays a little bite to his game, a little bit of jam. He's not going to go out there and fight everybody, but he'll drop the gloves when needed. So it's is it a bold take to say that the Flames have added a new top defenseman, like the number one defenseman? I don't think it's too bold to say that, man.
No, I don't think it is at all. I think this guy is going to fit right in. And, I really loved the type of things he was saying today. He sounded like a very confident guy who I think under Daryl Sutter, he's going to really succeed.
And the thing about Weegar too is he's got low mileage. I think he's got like around 300 games. So he really hasn't played that much. He's played on a really good team. He's played with a good partner in Aaron Ekblad. Very interested to see who they'll partner him up with. Because the Flames defense right now is probably, you're looking at the forward there. We had one question mark there, which could be filled quite easy. It could be filled by Pelche, and it also could be filled on free agency too with some other Evan, and I don't know if he's a winger for like a Rodriguez, Phil Kessel's still out there. Some random guys out there that could fill that spot.
I have to dunk on Oiler fans here again for a second here. So so their very high paid price defenseman Darnell Nurse at $9.25 million. Such a disastrous contract. Had 35 points last year. MacKenzie Weegar had 44, and he makes like $3.5 million.
Yeah, so I know. Yeah,
$6 million.
I was gonna bring that up and dunk on Oiler fans for Darnell Nurse making almost as much as Johnny Gaudreau does. Like,
that is just trash. Like, that contract is such a disaster.
I don't understand it. I mean, maybe he's good in the locker room or something, man. But like, cool. The guy played like 60 minutes in a playoff game or something. You sign him to that. Like, I get that too, man. Like, that's why I said Weegar being the very underrated defense, and we don't have $9 million locked up.
Right.
So no, I completely forgot about that. So thanks for reminding me about that one.
And by the way, the previous year they had the same amount of point total in 36. Yeah. So
okay, I gotcha. So suck it, Oiler fans. Darnell Nurse taking up your cap. Oh my god, we can't fill. Okay, yeah, it's because you got Darnell Nurse eating as much cap as two of our defensemen would. So what I was saying is I don't exactly know who Weegar's going to play with. We still don't know the timeline on Tanev. As of right now, don't expect him to start the season. No. But we've heard Pat say this many times that hockey players are freaks in nature and they heal at a different rate. So I wouldn't expect him on opening night, maybe a little bit earlier than you expect. But we've still got, you're going to sign Shillington, whether or not you keep him or not. That's the question. But you still got Hanifin, you've got Anderson. You got a guy, Connor Mackey's going to come in and try to compete. Whether Yusuf Valimaki has fixed his game, I don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. Who knows? Maybe he's one of the guys that gets dealt. Who knows, man? Who knows?
So looking at cap friendly, by the way, just to jump in. So you have 9 defensemen with Chris Tanev including Chris Tanev, who's going to be out. You've got way too many defensemen. So this means that somebody potentially might be on the move. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, potentially. I even want to go on the limit and not say potentially someone is going to get moved, man.
Yeah, I think so.
Whether it's just someone to dump for cap space and a pick, or maybe there's a bigger deal to be had out there. Who knows, man? Who knows the deals that Brad was trying to make with the Panthers style, the Blues or whoever. Maybe he was trying to throw in a Valimaki or somebody like that, try to sweeten the pot, but you didn't need to sweeten the pot with the Panthers because you're not getting a better deal on that. Like,
exactly.
They came out today from the Blues reporters that the Blues had offered Tarasenko, not any money retained, so that's $7 million, and Marco Scandella and a first, which is like I wonder how long it took Brad Treliving to say no to that.
I think he hung up the phone immediately. Like Bill Armstrong should have been fired on the spot there for that type of offer. Like that's horrible.
Yeah, like I don't know what I've never paid no attention to Marco Scandella, so I can't tell you what that is. But Tarasenko is he's a free agent who he's not an American, but I maybe he wanted to stay in the American market. There was a lot of rumblings he didn't want to be around Calgary, so thank God that we didn't do that trade, because that would have been bad. So
really bad.
With Florida being the best option for the Flames. And
now that would have sent you into a rebuild, like without a question. It would have sent you into a rebuild.
Tarasenko is also a free agent, so I mean,
and he's wanted out of St. Louis for like 3 years now.
I just don't think Calgary would have been the answer for them. So thank God, we moved to Florida. Also, out of the Western Conference, as much as or whatever, Tkachuk's gone, whatever. You don't want to be playing him 3-4 times a year again. Like you don't want to have that again. Like you're only gonna have to play him twice, pretty probably spaced out or what. I haven't checked the schedule. I just know that Florida's coming earlier. They're coming up before Christmas, so them in Columbus. So we go to Columbus in December, I believe, and then the Columbus comes here in January. And kind of the nice thing for Flames fans and for the Flames organization is I can't see a lot of the games last year were not sold out, and for different variety of different reasons, but Columbus has never really been a big draw for Calgary. It's not one of those games that is going to sell out. So this year the Columbus game will sell out, and the Florida game will sell out. So 2 out of market games that are going to put some butts in the seats and make some money for the Flames. So
over and under on if Tkachuk. I mean, what's the over and under? Do you think that Tkachuk gets booed?
I think he'll get booed, but like it'll be very subtle. Like, I don't think it's going to be drowned out. Like, I don't think it's going to be John Tavares style. Now, do I think Johnny Gaudreau is going to get booed like John Tavares did? Not to that degree, but I do think that he's going to get fucking booed.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the comments and the way he left. Maybe it's a little bit lighter now because, he'll be coming in January. That's almost not quite halfway through the year, pretty close. We'll see what Huberdeau is all about. We'll see what Weegar's all about. And, if we're in the same spot that we were, then who fucking cares, man? Like, see you later. Gone. Who cares?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, man. So
that's true.
I mean, getting back to the whole, UFA thing with Huberdeau and Weegar is, they took that on knowing it. All these fans say, oh, he's gone. He's going to Montreal. The Flames knew that. And that they're going to start to engage in contract talks right now. To me, I don't think it's going to make any a whole lot of sense for them unless they're like, you know what, this is a good spot. And a guy like Huberdeau, maybe he was expecting that this year to be his ticket year. He's coming off a 115-point season in heading into free agency a year later. He's like, I want to get that extension done right now and make my money right now while I'm at my highest value. So maybe he does do that with the Flames. Who knows? But these guys also need to, both ways. They need to prove themselves to the organization of the Flames, and the Flames and the city of Calgary also need to prove themselves to these two players. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. Weegar said the same is, do I mesh well with the coach? Do I like the city? Do I like the guys on the roster? Do I like, playing in the arena? Whatever it is, man. Those are all factors that these guys, it's going to take into them. So I don't see them, as much as I'd love it, man, I just can't see them signing before the start of the season. I just really can't. Can I see them signing in Calgary? 100%, but I just can't see them signing before the season starts. Like, it might be one of those things where, maybe, I'm not sure the whole thing, if you can sign a deal halfway through the year, if they, Flames are in a good spot, the guys are liking it and they're like, no, I want to make a commitment to you now. Yeah, sure. Maybe they do. But
do you think if they extended long-term, that would extend the window by at least a few years, at least by 3 to 4 years?
A long time, man, because you're going to sign, if you get them both, and obviously if you just get one of them, it's still a win in my opinion. The most likely one, if you're only getting one, is probably Weegar.
MacKenzie, Weegar,
yeah. But if you do end up getting both of them, they're probably on 6 to 8 year deals. So that extends your window with those guys. You'd still have Markstrom for another 3 years. I think you'd still have Hannafin and Anderson for another 3 years, I believe. You got Blake Coleman for another 4. The guys that are coming close, you'd have Mangiapane for probably another 5 or 6.
Lindholm's coming close.
That's the thing about Lindholm. Yeah. We talked about it. We talked about it on the last podcast without even knowing what it was going to happen. But say Lindholm does this season, he plays with Huberdeau and Huberdeau sets him up and he scores 40 again, or gets close to 50 or whatever, and he gets 70 to 80 points again. And, he gets nominated for the Selke again, that kind of stuff. lock him up. Like, don't do this bullshit again. Don't put us through
Yeah.
this crap. Like, lock
Mhm.
him up. If he wants to be here next offseason before his final year, lock him up, man. Maybe that's what you got to do is, maybe that's another selling factor to Jonathan Huberdeau is he played with Lindholm all year and he had just as much success that he did with Lindholm playing with Barkov. Maybe that's a selling point to him there too.
Mhm.
Lock
Yeah.
him up, man. Like there's not a
Agreed.
whole lot of other guys that are going to need to be locked up. And we'll get into the captain talk here when I'm going to bring up this player. You'll be running out on years on Michael Backlund. Who knows if that's the kind of guy that wants a longer term deal or if he wants to stay in Calgary and just keep taking short term deals. Who knows? I think he's got 3 more years left. But that's again transitions right to what I said. Do the Flames go into this season without a captain again?
I don't think so.
No, I don't.
Not this time. I think they definitely named someone captain. I don't know who it is, to be honest. I think first of all, I think my my number one candidate would be Elias Lindholm.
You go with
Like
Lindholm,
without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would go with Backlund,
Okay.
personally, just based on loyalty of the organization, how long he's been here, a leader. Unfortunately, I love the fights and stuff like that, but a captain in this day and age doesn't necessarily have to be the guy that fights all the time. Backlund definitely doesn't fight, but he definitely doesn't shy away either.
Nope.
He'll get chippy, he'll get shoved, he'll get shoving in the scrums in front of the net and stuff like that too.
He'll get nasty. He'll get
He
nasty
he
when he needs
plays
to.
against the guy. He plays against the top stars every night. He's up battling. He's going up against McDavid. To be personally honest, I don't mind your pick with Lindholm, but I think Backlund's a no-brainer, in my opinion. I think that they should announce it. I think the perfect time to do it would be to announce it when they have their reverse retro and their third come out to introduce it that way. That would be a really cool way to do it. Who knows when that'll be.
By the way, I'll just say this right here, right now. Huberdeau's going to look amazing when Blasty finally comes back.
So
like he's going to look incredible.
Yeah, they're both going to look good in that. Both of those guys got good style. So yeah, of course, man. Like I'd love to see Michael Backlund, and then your assistant, your leadership group probably does consist of Huberdeau. Like unfortunately, unless the guy, like I said, I don't foresee it happening, but unless the guy signs a long-term contract before the start of the season, then that might open the door to give that guy a captaincy, but I don't see it happening. I do believe you slap a letter on his jersey regardless, based on he was the leader there. Tanev's your obvious choice too. And the other one that's probably going to still stay is if they have him healthy and recovered and they're giving him another shot. He wore a letter last year, John Monahan, so you can't really take that away from him. So that, and then to me, sometimes a lot of teams they do carry the fourth, whether they rotate it around. As much as I'd like to say Lindholm, I do think that Coleman's a bit of a leader in the locker room, and he's been there and he's won cups and that kind of stuff too. So, but then also, there's guys that it doesn't matter if they have a letter on their jersey or not. If they end up keeping Milan Lucic, he's a leader, man. Regardless, like the cap hit sucks, but he's still a leader, man. Like if you went through it last year, like as much as people said, well, Tkachuk's the captain. To me, last year the captain was in the dressing room was Milan Lucic. Not based on his skating ability or his scoring, but just based on his experience and his willingness to battle, and probably the stuff that a lot of the fans don't see in the locker room and off the ice with the team parties and the functions and the Thanksgiving dinners and that kind of stuff like that too. So there's a lot more that goes into being a captain or a leader than just having it stitched onto your sweater.
Yeah, exactly.
So I am hoping that the Flames do
for
end
jersey's
up
talent sake as well. Like let's hope a captain is finally named.
Well, the sad reality.
And you know what? And you know what? Another thing too is with the captaincy, they were waiting on whether Matthew Tkachuk was going to be.
No, I know, man. I know. And that's kind of the crappy thing. Yeah.
We all know that if Matthew Tkachuk signed long term, he gets that captaincy immediately and he becomes the guy who's going to carry the franchise long term. But obviously that's not the case anymore.
There's a reason why they didn't name him the captain last year, man, because maybe they didn't feel that he was ready and they knew that this kind of thing might have happened. So, you kind of avoided it there. But maybe if you made him the captain, he might have wanted to, who knows, man? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the guy's not quite, he's a good talker and, I still like the player, but maybe he's not captain material based on some of the stuff in the locker room and wanting to be there. And still, who knows, man? But at the end of the day, I don't hold a grudge. I'm not angry. It sucks to see the guy go, and the Battle of Alberta might look a little bit different. We still got some grit. I'll definitely be interested to see if they hang on to Lucic and they hang on, a guy like Kevin Rooney's got some bite to his game. The Oilers got no bite to me.
No,
that team ain't got no bite, man. No,
They
we're
don't have the dog in them
no,
either.
no, they don't. We're laughing at guys like they got Darnell, cool, $9 million for someone to fight. Like, yeah, cool, great, that's awesome, man. So enough of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? Yeah, you're being paid $9.25 million just to stand there and let players go around you. So it's like,
So kind of the last thing just to wrap it all up here too is so what do the Flames do now? So you got to try to sign these guys. Like I said, I don't foresee it happening, but they're still going to try. Like, you don't doubt that True Living's, having conversations with these agents and stuff like that. If they, like, hopefully they're going to get this Mangiapane and Shillington stuff done sooner than later. I mean, they've got a kind of a deadline to do it, so you can't rush them on that. But if they do end up signing these guys to what we expect, kind of between that 5 or 6 to Mangiapane and around that 2.5, maybe as high as 2.75 for Shillington. I think Pike broke it down that they probably have just shy, like 5.75, just under $6 million to spend out there. And the need that they have, they definitely don't have a need on defense. That's for damn sure. They got way too many defensemen. So you're looking at that right now. So if you moved out, you got that just shy of 6. But if you say you signed Shillington, then you moved him, you're looking at, closer to 8. Does someone out there like a Kadri still make sense for the Calgary Flames?
the one thing I'll say about Kadri, and this is something that we were discussing, prior to going on air, was that every single day that Nazem Kadri isn't signed, the more his value diminishes. And the more he becomes cheaper.
Oh, right.
The more he becomes cheaper. So I'm not saying you can get him at $7 million.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that he's starting to become maybe not as expensive as you originally thought, because you thought that with a guy like Kadri, it would have been signed, sealed, delivered, that he would have been signed on day one of free agency.
Right.
That it would not have lasted this long.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's like a Colorado thing where like he just wants to be in Colorado so bad, and he's just like, yeah, screw it, I'm just waiting for them to make a move. Because I've heard that with Colorado, all they'd have to do is move like a Sam Girard or something like that, and they've got the space. So
I don't think there's any way they can make that work, especially with the Nathan McKinnon extension.
Yeah, I know. That's
coming
the
up as
hard
well.
thing, right? That's the hard thing, right? Too. So that there's other teams in play. I mean, you're right. As it goes along, more teams are not going to wait as long. But that's the kind of thing about Calgary, though, man. Like I talked about, is if they end up shedding a player, whether it's a Shillington, a Valimaki, and maybe it is a Monahan. Maybe they do find a way. Maybe they acquired that first round pick or whatever to package it up with Luch and get him out of here. Then they've got that space, man, to make that move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a need that they, I don't know if they.
I'm just thinking about this too, because then it's like, okay, so your top 4 center are set. Then at that point, and again, folks, hypothetically, if Nazem Kadri signs, I'm not saying he does sign.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, okay, you got Lindy's your first line center. Kadri's easy number 2.
Yeah.
And then Bax, Bax would be a good third line center, but then he becomes a pretty expensive third line center at that point.
Yeah.
So then you have Lewis as your number 4 then at that point.
Yeah, and that's if you'd have to move, like Monahan would have to be moved out in order to accommodate the space on the roster and the space in the cap, right?
Poor Monahan's gonna get dumped in Arizona.
You never know, man. But for me, like with seeing Johnny just up and leave, and then seeing Tkachuk one out, a part of me and a part of my heart wants Sean Monahan to remain a Calgary Flame, and I want him to return to form. Those are big wishes, man. Like it's not saying it's going to happen, but I'd love nothing more than Sean Monahan to return to form the way he was before. Maybe not, the 30 goal scorer, whatever it was, but maybe he's a 20 goal scorer and he's a 25 assist guy, closer to that 50 point range, whatever you want to say. How nice it would be to have on the power play Jonathan Huberdeau digging in the corners and dishing it out to Sean Monahan in the slot again. Because when his shot was fine, his wrist was fine, whatever injuries he's had, that shot was lethal. So if he returns to form, it's like lost money. It's like finding lost money. It's like finding money in the couch, man. Right. You find that player. It's like acquiring that player, right? We didn't have that player last year for damn sure, and we did not have that player in that bubble year. So if that player, Sean Monahan, returns to form, that's essentially like adding another player. Another player that's been loyal to the organization, that hasn't expressed an interest to leave. Granted, he's not an American player. He's a Canadian. He's a pretty quiet guy. I'm sure that he's, enjoyed his time in Calgary. So if we can get that guy back to form, there's nothing more I'd like than that. Then I personally, I would rather see And you can't predict that, man. I would rather see Sean Monahan stay with the Flames, return to form, than them move him out to acquire someone else. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, too, I don't think any of us were sitting here last week being like, "Oh, it's all good." The Flames are going to trade Matthew Tkachuk for Jonathan Huberdeau and MacKenzie. Fuck no.
yeah, no
Nobody
way.
knew that. No. So you have
nobody knew nobody knew that was coming down.
Yeah.
Like everybody knew that Matthew Tkachuk was on the verge of being traded, but nobody knew that that type of package was.
Like I said last podcast, you don't know shit, man. You don't know shit.
Exactly.
So you have no idea what the Flames are going to do. So with that, we'll head into another week. Things are exciting back in Flames land. We got a little shot in our arm. We don't have to listen to those stupid Oilers fans. Oh, we sent you into a rebuild. Yeah, our rebuild lasted 14 fucking days. Yours lasted 14 years. So suck on that, Oilers fans. I got these guys on Oilers Nation radio coming up saying, "Oh, we're going to drive a bus up just to give you a hug. Bring it. Come on down. Give me a hug right now. I'll give you one right back, you fucking Oilers fans." So anyways, Noah, it's been great snapping around with you. Always a good time for Shot Down in Flames. Great things are coming with Flames Nation. Keep in touch. And that was another episode of Shot Down in Flames, boys.